Okay, hi everyone. Um I see a lot of known faces. Now, today's session will be on the pointers for Russia Ukraine from Clat and AILET perspective. Now, my objective today would be to to run through the topic, give you the basic idea about why this conflict happened and what's going on right now. But from CLAT and AILET perspective, what I feel is important, we are going to just take a note of those things. Now, um, you know that on the 24th of February 2022, uh, the attack happened on the Ukraine. It was quite expected because there was a heavy buildup of the Russian forces along the Ukrainian border. Uh, about 150,000 soldiers were there, and for a change, the CII got the correct report that there's going to be an attack, and it happened. Now, uh, this particular so-called war, I mean, it's just the tip of the iceberg. More importantly, there are many issues, international issues, that are connected to this topic. And why I'm saying it's tip of the iceberg, because this was going on for years after the breaking of the Soviet Union in 1991 and the falling apart of the Warsaw Pact. And there was an unsaid rule that NATO would not approach the Russian territory, I mean, after West Germany, but that never happened. And Putin was waiting for his time to become stronger and powerful, and he kept taking a note of this and putting his point across through a lot of bilateral treaties over the years. But NATO, even after the objective of NATO, which initially was to check the Russian aggression, did not heed to the advice, and they kind of changed the objective to cooperative alliance, but the objective still was Russia. And this was building up, and when one of the former allies, one of the former, uh, you know, Republic of USSR, when they decided to, I mean, become a part of NATO, all hell broke loose. So, I mean, what I'm going to do today is give you a basic idea, but what is most important today is to know a few things. I mean, the pointers. One would be my knowledge about, yes, that's province, not republic. One would be should know about EU. Second, knowledge about NATO. Third, should know what START is. Fourth, should know what SWIFT is. Fifth, about important personalities in this war, Putin, Zelensky. Seventh, the Orange Revolution. Eighth, 2014, the Euromaidan issue, which led to the, you know, breaking away of Crimea and Russia annexing that area. Should know about the Bosphorus Strait and the treaty, 1936 treaty, with the you know with the that was with Turkey. So we are going to touch upon these issues, but the topic, I mean, understanding of topic is important, but these pointers will be most crucial. I think that's what is important from a CLAT perspective. All right. Just 1 second, guys. 1 second. Uh, let's get started now. So, just to give you a brief idea about the various timelines. Now, yes, they have a common history. Russia and Ukraine, the genesis is from the 9th century. Both Russia and Ukraine were part of Kievan Rus province. But that's not very important. What's important is the USSR, which was which came into being after the Bolshevik Revolution 1922, when the Communist Party, it was a one-party rule from 1922 to 1991. And so the largest country in the world, which has 11 time zones, and look at the area. So they had multiple national republics, very centralized economy. The powers, with the Communist Party, like we have in China now, and the major urban centers then were Moscow, Leningrad, Kiev, Minsk, which is the capital of Belarus, Kiev, capital of Ukraine, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan, Almaty, which is the capital of Kazakhstan. Right, so these were the major urban centers. Now, uh, everything was going fine. I mean, after Lenin, Stalin took over, and then we had various Communist Party heads coming over. But the defining movement was when Mikhail Gorbachev, took over in 1985, and he tried to bring a lot of electoral reforms. Now, he was, the last general secretary of the Communist Party, and he started enacting policies of glasnost, which was openness, and perestroika, which is restructuring. And he pushed for disarmament and demilitarization of Eastern Europe. Now, he tried to bring about a change. He wanted to end the era of stagnation, but this led to the collapse of Soviet Union. The various communist regime, they felt threatened, and finally these heads, try to exert their, the pressure. Am I audible, guys? Akhand Pandey has said that voice is not coming. Am I audible? Am I audible? Okay. So, this led to the collapse in 1990, 1991. And these were the various states in USSR. So, Russian, SFSR, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, Belarusian, Moldavian, Ukrainian, Georgia, Armenia. So, you see, Ukraine was also part of this. Russia, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, the, the countries, now the countries which are next to the Baltic Sea. All right. He was a very, one of the most dynamic leaders that Russia has had, and he wanted reforms. But then, uh, because of the others feeling insecure, they took over and they broke into Commonwealth of Republics. All right. So the Estonia was the first country to declare state sovereignty in 1988. Estonia, the capital is Tallinn. Lithuania, Vilnius is the capital, was the first republic to declare independence from the Soviet Union after the collapse. Then these states, they maintained close ties with Russia. Many of them, uh, some of them like Estonia, Lithuania, and all, they wanted to have a democratic regime, but the a lot of them like Belarus, etc., they still maintained very close ties with Russia. The Baltic states, they became part of the European Union. So we are talking about Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, right? And even Poland, right? They were part of the Warsaw Pact. They became members of European Union and the NATO. So NATO plays a very, very important role in this particular topic. And the others like Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova. Moldova is neighbor to Ukraine. They express their interest to join the NATO, right? But they did not become members of NATO then. All right. So it's important to discuss about Warsaw Pact. To give you a background. So it came into being in 1955. So basically, it was to exert control over these countries which were sharing the border with the Soviet Union. And the participants were Albania, Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, Germany. We're talking about the East Germany, Hungary, Poland, Romania, and Soviet Union. So these were the members of Warsaw Pact. So Warsaw Pact was also a military alliance, right? So what Warsaw Pact was to Eastern Europe and Russia. Similarly, NATO was to the West Europe and USA and Canada. So these were two big military alliances which came into being during the Cold War, right? And and the treaty was that like the Article 5 of NATO, that if any country is attacked, the others will help, and it is an attack on their own province. They'll treat as if the attack is on their on their country. So important thing here is, um, they wanted the Warsaw Pact, the underlying Article 5 of NATO, yeah, strengthen the Soviet hold over the satellite. So it was trying to exert more control over these European countries. Now, I've shown you through a map also. So Warsaw is the this colored. We have Poland, East Germany, Czechoslovakia. You see the East Europe part, the countries which are next to the Baltic Sea here, and above the Black Sea, right? So we have Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and this part is Turkey, Greece, Italy. This is all part of NATO. So then Spain was not part of NATO. This is 1960. I'm talking about the beginning of the Cold War, right? So East Europe dominated, the alliances through the Warsaw Pact, and West Europe, the alliances of NATO. Even UK is part of it. So you can see Norway. Amongst the Nordic countries, we have Norway, which was part of NATO. Now Finland and Sweden, they want to become part of NATO. Okay, so we'll discuss about that also in brief. Now, now we have seen Warsaw Pact, basically to get the Eastern Europe together as a military alliance, right? And in a way, it was a tool used by Russia, the Soviet Union, to exert more pressure over Eastern Europe. Similarly, NATO, which was founded in 4th April 1949, collective security, military alliance, 28 European countries and 2 North American, which is USA and Canada. the motto of the organization is animus in consilio labor, whatever you how you pronounce it, a mind unfettered in deliberation. So they might just ask you, what is the motto of NATO? Headquarters is in Brussels, Belgium, um, right? So I'll just show you where Belgium is. This is where Belgium is. So it's sharing the border with France and Netherlands, right? It also has the headquarters of ICG, International Court of Justice, and ICC, International Criminal Court, right? So Belgium is quite important, and in fact, yeah, one important point here I missed out in the PPT is that earlier the uh, yeah, earlier the headquarters was in earlier the headquarters was in Paris, the headquarters of NATO, and then it shifted to Brussels, right? Yeah, ICG is The Hague. Now, originally there were 12 countries, and now it has increased to 30 countries. The last country to be added is North Macedonia, which was added in on the 27th of March. And NATO also recognizes uh, that Georgia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Ukraine are aspiring members, which I've already mentioned. Okay. Now, to give you a brief idea about Ukraine, so I'll just summarize a bit. Eastern Europe, Warsaw Pact, Western Europe, we are talking about the NATO, the alliances, which also has now it has 28 countries and two uh, North American countries, USA and Canada. Uh, Third point is that the headquarters is Belgium, which was earlier in Paris. Paris moved out of the NATO and then later joined again. So now let's come to Ukraine now. So Ukraine, it's the second largest country in the continent after Russia. The capital is Kiev, and 6 lakh kilometers square is the area. People are fluent with Ukrainian as well as the um, Russian language, and very fertile land. In fact, it's one of the largest grain exporters in the world, right before the war started. And 1991. Now, this thing is also very important because you need to know about what is START, START, right? So um uh, after Soviet Union broke, I mean it broke into Commonwealth of Independent States. I mean, Russia. There was a lot of, I mean, treaties then, like the Lisbon Treaty uh, and START, right? Which the aim of these treaties was to get rid of nuclear warheads at various places, right? So it was there were a lot of nuclear weapons in Kazakhstan, in Ukraine, and this is what START tried to do to get rid of these nuclear warheads. So Ukraine, in order to get uh, the military and economic support from Russia, agreed to transfer all the military, all the nuclear warheads to Russia. Now, this, in retrospect, actually became one of the biggest blunders because they actually let go of their deterrent, right? Russia promised them, support and economic as well as security, umbrella. But then you see now, 25 years, 26 years henceforth, they both are, at war with each other. So nuclear warheads could have been deterrent, right? Now, some of the important timelines is um Orange Revolution, 2004, when uh, Viktor Yanukovych was pitted against Yushchenko, and the elections were, the claim was that the elections were rigged, and that is why there was a revolution. So I mentioned that Yukovich was declared the winner, and Yushchenko supporters, they charge fraud and stage mass protests, and that is why this was called as Orange Revolution, right? And finally, what happened is elections were again held, and Yushchenko won the elections, and he, was the head of, was the prime minister of Ukraine for quite some time. Then again, it is claimed there were a lot of manipulations and rigging, and Viktor Yanukovych again came back as the prime minister of Ukraine. And in 2013, he was actually, pro-Russia and pro-Putin. And in 2013, he was about to do an agreement with Europe, a trade agreement, but that did not, I would say pro-Putin rather than pro-Russia, yeah. So he was about to do an agreement with Europe, but that did not happen, and he instead, did an agreement, alliance with Russia, and that did not go well with the people, and therefore there was this 2013 Euromaidan revolution, demonstration that happened, and even the Americans, they sent their diplomats in support of, to sympathize with these Ukrainians, these protesters, and finally, then I'm talking about 2014 now. Putin again decided to attack Ukraine, and he took over their very strategic, which was a very strategic port by the name of Crimea, and which gave them access to the Black Sea, and also a portion they started supporting the the separatist movement in the east of Ukraine. I'll just show you through the map. So they started supporting east of Ukraine, the Donbas region, right? So this was the Orange Revolution, and this is the Euromaidan, right? Which was 2013 and 2004. So you should know the timelines. 2004 is the Orange Revolution in Ukraine, and 2013 is the Euromaidan, right? Now, one important thing here is that this is not the first time that Putin has attacked. A similar thing happened in Georgia in 2008. So we see 2008, and then in 2013, right? Similar thing happened when the Russians attacked. All right. So just a little brief again. Ukraine shares border with Russia, Belarus, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Moldova, Romania here. Bulgaria is down south. This is the Black Sea, right? And you have the Baltic states, countries here, and right. So this is the Baltic Sea here and the Black Sea here. This part is the Crimea, right? And this is the Donbas region. I'm going to show that to you again, right? So I mean, when you do this, it's very important that you should know the capitals also. So, for instance, let me ask you, what is the capital of? You should know the capital of Hungary, which is Budapest. What is the capital of Romania? Bucharest. You should know the capital of Belarus, which is Minsk. Poland, Warsaw. So, when you're doing it, you should generally know the capital, right? Okay. So, now we have done this. Yeah, so NATO, I've already mentioned. So, now what was happening is that a lot of experts say that, Belarus is Minsk, yeah. Alexander Lukashenko, so is the president there. Now, enlargement, what happened is that because of what Putin wanted was that Russia is given a legal guarantee that they will not expand eastwards towards Russia, and NATO started expanding when Clinton took over in US. They decided to get in more members, and this was 1996, right? And you had slowly these people, the Baltic countries, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia joining, and eventually Poland, Romania, and others also joined. And now what happened was that Eastern Europe, which acted as a buffer between the uh, between the between the NATO countries, or the Western Europe and Russia, now this buffering started reducing. I mean, they almost NATO was right at the Russians' doorstep. I mean, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, they share boundaries with Russia. Okay. So, and the core of NATO treaty is Article 5. Like I mentioned, that if you attack any country which is a NATO member, it will be treated as, uh, attacking their own country. So, this is a very important part of NATO's treaty. A commitment that an attack on any NATO country is treated as an attack on the entire alliance, right? Meaning any Russian military engagement of a hypothetical NATO member, Ukraine, would theoretically bring Moscow into conflict with the USA, UK, France, and the 27 other NATO members, right? Now, um, just to give you some more idea about NATO, originally you had these countries, the blue ones, it shows the countries that were originally part of NATO. So you have Norway, Netherlands, Belgium, West Germany, France, Italy, Spain, UK, and Portugal. So these were the countries that were part of NATO, right? Originally. Now, slowly, you see Soviet Union, and if you look at the countries that were part of Warsaw Pact, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, right? So this part is also part of Russia, right? So Russia has got a disjoint part, independent part separately here. Belarus, Ukraine, Moldova. So all these countries are part of the Warsaw Pact, and the countries, I'm sorry, and this is Russia, and these are the countries which were part of the Warsaw Pact: East Germany, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria. So Eastern Europe and Western Europe, and Turkey, which was also part of NATO, right? And in fact, Turkey plays a very key role with these two straits here, Bosphorus Strait and the Dardanelles Strait. So this strait gives. I'm going to explain that. If you see these two straits through the Sea of Marmara, it give. This is a choke point. These are two choke points. So from the Black Sea to the Mediterranean Sea, these are two straits, right? And they're actually not very the length of these straits, this is about 63 kilometers, and the breadth is about 4 to 5 kilometers, right? Okay. Now, so what I mentioned here is, now this is the present picture of NATO. So you look at this: Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. So Estonia and Latvia, they share border with Russia. Belarus is a very, very close um Russian ally, and it shares border with Lithuania, right? So you look at these three countries, the Baltic states, they're sharing a big boundary with Russia and Belarus. So when I talk about Belarus, I treat it as Russia only, right? So earlier, if you see the picture, uh, I'm talking about, the Cold War days. This is where, before the breakup of West Germany, East Germany, this is where NATO was. And there was quite a distance between NATO and, and Russia. So these countries were acting as a strong buffer. And that's the reason, Russia wanted to create a buffer zone. But now this buffer zone has vanished. It's right at the doorstep. So when you're right at the doorstep and you start poking into, you know, Putin's eye, this was something that, uh, you know, happened. This was this was bound to happen, right? So that's my opinion. I mean, they came too close, and ideally they should have always maintained a buffer zone. And you don't mess around with a superpower. I mean, you have to give them this kind of benefit. So I mentioned the original members here: Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Iceland. I've already shown that to you in the map, and these are the current members of NATO: Albania, Belgium, Bulgaria, Canada. So this list is there, which shows the present members. Now let's look at what the crisis, and we'll discuss this in detail. The attack happened on the 24th of February, and Putin said that he does not feel safe, uh, and he said that there should be denazification of the Ukrainian territory, and the attack happened, and so this part, so the United States, and I've already mentioned this, all the warheads were returned for economic and security assurances. So this slide should have come earlier. Yeah, so this is what I wanted to mention. You should take a note of this, important from Clat and AILET perspective. What is START? So it is called as Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, which was signed. The treaty came into effect in 1991, and with this and the Lisbon Protocol, they were able to get rid of all the nuclear infrastructure by 1996. And 1994, Ukraine became part of the NPT. So you should just know broadly what all happened then. So just continuing from there, the Russian President Putin, he calls the NATO expansion very menacing, and the prospect of Ukraine joining it as a major threat. As Russia has grown more assertive and stronger, so over the years, I mean, after the collapse of Soviet Union, Russia was weak. I mean, economically, not in a position to spend a lot of money on military, etc. But over a period of time, Russia, built up its reserve, and at the time when Russia attacked Ukraine, they are sitting on some dollars, $687 billion reserve, right? So economically, he was in a much powerful situation. They are one of the biggest suppliers of natural gas and oil to the world. In fact, half of Europe's energy needs is met by Russia. So Europe is actually dependent, so Putin knows this, that the circumstances and the dynamics and economics have completely changed, right? And Russia was in a much powerful situation. Now, Putin thinks that the disintegration of the Soviet Union was the worst thing that could happen, and the Russians lost its glory, and he wants to get that old glory back. And he feels that Ukraine is fundamentally part of Russia culturally and historically. Now, we can have a debate on this. I mean, what was in the past is not the future. It's an independent country that doesn't give you any right to go and attack that country. So yes, technically that's wrong, but Putin has a logic to it. So like a critical reasoning question, you have for and against the motion here to arrive at a conclusion whether he is justified at, in attacking Ukraine. Okay, I've already mentioned this, that in 2014, Russia attacked Ukraine and annexed Crimea. This was a bloodless, act, and nobody died in this. There was no opposition here, and so I've also mentioned about that what happened during the Euromaidan. There were US diplomats who visited the demonstrations as a symbolic gesture, and this agitated Putin. So 2014 is one of the milestone years here. Okay. So the other thing was besides Crimea, we are talking about this Donbas region, okay, Donetsk and Luhansk, and this is where Russians were supporting the separatists, right? So this is one third of this portion. I mean, is controlled actually by the separatists, which is kind of there are a lot of industries in this particular area. Okay. So, what was Putin's goal? Demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, right? But the point is, there has been no genocide in Ukraine, and it's a vibrant democracy. Even the president is Jewish. Second is that Putin wrote a long piece describing Russians and Ukrainians as one nation. So he feels that both the countries are one, and he described the collapse of Soviet Union in December 1991 as a disintegration of historical Russia. So he still feels that this was one of the biggest blunders, and it uh, and he also blames the West for leading to this disintegration, right? And one more thing is that since Putin is an autocrat, this gives him a kind of a supremacy when you kind of encourage these nationalist ideas. It also gives him more assertiveness over his people, right? So what he wants is, what are his demands? That Ukraine recognizes Crimea as part of Russia. Okay, so you know what is Crimea? This is the portion, right? So which was annexed in 2014. In fact, it was part of USSR, and it was given to Ukraine SSR in 1952. So there is a history to it also. And he wants that NATO should turn the clock back to 1997. What happened in 1997? They got the Baltic states and Poland, and the countries which are just sharing border with Russia, to become a NATO member. So he wants to go back to the Warsaw Pact days. So this would require, now what would this mean? That it would require NATO to remove its forces and military infrastructure from member states that joined the alliance from 1997 and not to deploy strike weapons near Russia's border. This means Central Europe, Eastern Europe, and the Baltics. So we're talking about the same countries here, right? So let's just come to it once more. So what does Putin want? Is we are looking at 1997, and he wants NATO out of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, right? So I'm considering Belarus kind of friends with Russia, and they are very, very close allies. So forget about this, but yes, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. And now, if you see, they share almost 1500 kilometers boundary with Finland. So after the attack on Ukraine, Finland and Sweden, they also aspire to become NATO members. In fact, Finland meets the criteria because they are already, spending more than 2% of their defense, of their budget on defense, right? So Finland has also aspired to be. So look at this. I mean, there is no buffer zone left now, except Belarus, which is a very, very strong ally with Russia. Okay. Now, so I'm going to mention this again, that a lot of sanctions followed, and one of the most significant moves was that we tried to choke Russia, strangulate Russia economically, right? One is provide a lot of military aid to Ukraine, and on the other hand, sanctions. Now, there was a lot of speculation then, and that the Russians will not be able to hold on for long because once they are strangulated economically, once there is a shortage of goods and inflation, which is rise of price in Russia, uh, I mean, there would be internal protest, etc., etc., and therefore Putin will not be able to carry it for long. But now we are sitting end of May. The war started end of Feb, so it's March, April, and this is almost 90 days to war now. Uh, the Russians have been able to hold on. A, B is that the ruble is much stronger than before, than what it was on the 24th of February when they attacked. And in spite of whatever sanctions they have put, like one of their biggest moves was getting the Russian banks out of SWIFT, which is one messaging system to transfer funds from one country to another country, right? And one, almost 50% of the transaction across the world happen through the SWIFT messaging system. So let's say I want to transfer money from India to Moscow. I would need the bank account and the SWIFT code, right? So Russians banks were out of the SWIFT network. Besides this, uh, they started cutting down on uh, the exports from Russia, right? Even UK and US and the other countries like Japan, they stopped uh, exporting to Russia. So lot of lot of things have been done. Not to stream, the certification was not given, which was extremely important. But the point is that Russia is still the biggest exporter of oil. I think that has made a huge difference, and they've been able to hold on to their currency, which is ruble. And so, right after this attack, and when they were being strangulated economically, they increased the interest rate by 20%. So, the point I'm trying to make is that the Russian economy has been able to hold on primarily because of their strong reserves, and they've been able to sell it. Now, since half of Europe, 50% of Europe natural gas needs is met through the Russian gas and oil. Therefore, I mean, uh, they've been able to hold on, right? Uh, there are other crises also along with, because of this. One is there are a lot of refugees. So the countries that share the boundary with Russia, they've been getting a huge inflow of refugees. You also know that some 4 months ago, 5 months ago, there was again this crisis. You know that happened at Belarus, where uh, Alexander Lukashenko started attracting by giving them a lot of incentives to, you know, why Belarus they could enter Europe, and a lot of people from the Middle East, yes, Kurds also, they started traveling to Belarus, and there was a huge refugee crisis, along the border of Belarus. So people started getting into Estonia, Lithuania, and Poland. So, finally, what happened is that, uh, I mean, people were sent back from Belarus and they had to go through a lot of torture. So again, this refugee crisis is happening, and so one important name that you should know is Stoltenberg, who is the Secretary General of NATO, and one important thing here is without the unanimous buy-in of all approval of all the 30 members of NATO, you can't join. So one important fact that I want to mention here is that both Sweden and Finland, they've applied for the membership of NATO, but Turkey feels that they've been supporting the anti Turkey movement, and Turkey could be could actually block their entry into NATO. But I think US is quite confident that they'll be able to surmount it, and these two countries will be part of NATO, right? Like I mentioned here again, their foreign assets were frozen. So their reserves in other countries in dollars, etc. Those assets were frozen, and they were out of the international SWIFT payment network. US has banned the Russian oil and gas, and EU plans to cut it by two-thirds, but as of now, not much has happened. Uh, so this is very important part. I'm going to discuss about Nord Stream 2. The approval has not been given, and three, four companies have been involved with major stake of a Russian company in the Nord Stream pipeline, which is a direct pipeline, um, from through the Baltic Sea from Russia to Germany, and the final approval has not been given. Russian Airlines has been barred from airspace over EU, and personal sanctions over the Russian President Putin and the Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, right, and many other high-end profile people, the mighty, rich people of Russia, the tycoons, right? But one thing very important to understand here is that Russia is not a North Korea or Iran, right? It is a big economy, and it does a lot of trade in raw materials, oil and gas. So Russia is not cannot be taken lightly, and it has a lot of impact in on the world economy. So so sanctions, if you are putting sanctions on a certain country, then there's a quid pro quo also. You will also get affected. So like we are seeing here, Europe depends on Russia because of oil. Therefore, if you don't take oil from them, you will start taking oil from some other country. And if the supply is there is a supply constraint, then obviously the price is going to go up. If the price go up, people are going to pay more money, then it's going to create another political problem, right? So it is a catch-22 situation here, right? Russians have the Russian economy has also prospered over the last 2 3 months because of high oil prices, right? So they're being paid more money for their oil, right? And Russians have demanded, like if you must have read it, that he's taking money in rubles. So once he's from Europe, so if he's taking money from uh, in rubles, it is also in a way helping them, keep a check on their foreign their currency, right? So I'll show you now through maps uh, the the annexation that happened. So these are the Russian-backed separatist movement. This is the Donbas region, and this is the Donetsk region and the Luhansk region. This is where you have the separatist movement. These are the major places where the attack has happened. So initially they attacked from the north. Now it is majorly from the east and the south part. They annexed Crimea in 2014. So you must have heard of these seaports at Mariupol, and Kharkiv is the second biggest city. So these are the places. I don't think so you need to remember these names, but I'm just telling you that earlier the attack plan was from north and now it is from the east side. Uh, Mariupol was very much in news. You should know about Crimea. Now they're trying to take over the seaport of Odessa, so which gives them access to the Black Sea, right? So this is how the Russians are attacking. Um, this is a small region which the blue region shows the area which is taken over by Ukrainians. Um the the pinkish area is showing you the Russian military control, and this is how the Russians are advancing, right? So this is from the east and the south side. Okay. So this again, I want to mention this about this particular place. You should know about it. So it's again a very small part, which is part of Moldova, separated but not recognized internationally, right? So this also has a lot of Russian-dominated people, and uh, recently there was a blast here, and the the grapevine is that it's Russians are behind the blast here, and they want to create some kind of a separatist movement here as well. Moldova is also aspired to become part of NATO. Okay. So any Eastern Europe country that becomes that now thinks of becoming part of NATO is going to really infuriate Putin. Now, so yeah, so yes, so this I've done. The maps, Donbass region is done. Yeah, so they've, UN particularly here has been completely ineffective. I mean, and the reason for this is because of the P5 members. Any no vote means that no action can be taken. And quite obviously, the Chinese and uh, the Russians have used the no vote towards the resolution condemning its action, right? Now, so you understood the basic idea. I mean, so what we have done so far, you should know about NATO, should know about the Warsaw Pact, you should know about START, right? Um you should know about the Donbass region, you should know about the Orange Revolution, you should know about 2013 Euromaidan um uh, revolution that happened, and yeah, so these are important things. Um, uh, yeah, and then European Union, right? So again, this is a political and economic union on 27 member states that are located primarily in Europe. So we are not, why we are saying Europe, I mean, Iceland is also part of it. So that's why we mentioned primarily in Europe. This was created by the Maastricht Treaty, which entered into force on November 1st, 1993, in a six. So this is how it started. The first countries that, you know, uh, got the idea of having a kind of a pact, economic union, political union. So this was Belgium, France, Italy, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands and West Germany. European Union was awarded the Nobel Prize in 2012. The gross domestic product, the GDP of EU is just about $5 trillion less than that of US. So as a bloc, their GDP is quite high, right? So 21 trillion is USA. This is about $15.3 trillion, right? So as a bloc, they're economically very, very powerful. The first member to leave UK was UK, which was on 31st Jan 2020, which is called as Brexit. You should know who the president of the European Commission is. She had in fact just come to India about a month and a half ago. So you see a lot of leaders now coming to India just to kind of garner support, uh, for which to be the Russians came, the European Commission head came, the even the Chinese ambassador had come to India, right? So you see a lot of movements happening. Charles Michel is the Belgian politician serving as the president of the European Commission. So you should know the name of Ursula von Leyen and Charles Michel, who is the president, right? So this is the European Union. You have Finland. So Norway is not part of the European Union, right? So I mentioned all the countries here: Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Sweden, Denmark, Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, a small country here, France, Germany, and so on and so forth. So just take a look at that. Portugal, Spain, Ireland here, UK, right? Now, another thing which I wanted to mention to you is about Nord Stream. It's been quite a news, and the Germans have not certified it. In fact, earlier what used to happen is there was Nord Stream 1, and the other pipelines were through Poland and Ukraine, and they would take a lot of transit fee. So there was a need for getting the oil directly from Russia, and that is how Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 was conceived. Right, so this is a 12 kilometers long undersea pipeline, which is important. This is not through the land. It's is very close to St. Petersburg in Russia, to Lumbin in Germany. Right, it cost about 10 billion euros, and the it is kind of a majorly owned by Gazprom, which is the Russian energy giant, and the other companies are Shell and NG of France. Right? It is running parallel to Nord Stream 1, the first one. Right? And these two pipelines will deliver 110 billion cubic meters of gas to Europe, and that is over a quarter of the gas that Europe. So Nord Stream 1 and 2 together will be 25% of the gas requirements of Europe. Right? The everything is complete. It is not certified by Germany because of the war that happened, and 40% of Europe's natural gas is supplied by Russia. Right, so there'll be a huge impact if the supply is stopped. Okay, so this is the Nord Stream. So this is I mean, if you look at this, this is from where it starts. This is very close to St. Petersburg, and the ऊपर वाला line जो है green वाला, that is the Nord Stream 1, and the dashed line is Nord Stream 2, and this is where it goes in Germany, right? And this is the Baltic Sea, right? The other pipelines, the land pipelines, are through Ukraine and Poland, and they charge a transit fee. So they wanted to get rid of this, and that is why this thing has come up. But I feel that now that it's just that Nord Stream 2 is not commissioned, but Europe needs oil, and if you're still depending on the land pipelines, you're paying more price. So um, eventually, they will certify it, because any country would like to take gas at a cheaper rate, right? So you see, Russia, what they try to do with India also, they started selling gas at a very low rate. So at the end of the day, I think it will be pure economics and not emotions. So eventually, I feel that they would certify and start taking the gas. Therefore, it's a catch-22 situation. So, like I said, many countries are dependent on the Russian oil, natural gas, and Germany is the biggest buyer from Russia, right? So that I've already said that their new chancellor, Olaf Scholz, has not certified it, has sent a clear signal, fine, but Germany needs oil. So that's the catch-22 situation here, right? So what I've tried to do here is, just from your CLAT and AILET perspective, I'm just again, trying to take you back, and you should know where to focus on when you're doing a revision of this topic. I've just given you a basic idea, so through this lecture, you will know what is happening, you'll know the masala, but what's important is to know what is, so I'll just run through it quickly. You should know the following. One is the disintegration of the Soviet Union, USSR. One. Second is, you should know about Mikhail Gorbachev, a very important personality because of which the disintegration happened. 1985 to 1900, 1991, USSR disintegrated and Ukraine was born. Then you should know about the Warsaw Pact, read about it. Then you should know about NATO. Then you should know about the basic characteristic of Ukraine. What is the capital? One of the most fertile lands in that place. You should know about START, which is the disarmament of nuclear warheads, right? Orange Revolution, you should know about, like I said, the Euromaidan. So the borders, Ukraine, so they might just ask you, okay, they might give you options, and you should be able to, you should know the borders: Russia, Belarus, Slovakia, Hungary, Moldova, right? Romania. So about NATO, read about it. And crisis, you should know about not to. We've already done that. So main region is the Donbas region. Should know about it. UN resolution, the P5 members and Russia vetoed. Therefore, no action could be taken. Three countries, 11 of the Security Council members में China, India and UAE ने they abstained from the voting, and India has abstained thrice, right? There was a lot of international pressure, still India has abstained, right? Should know about EU, read about it. I've already given you a background of European Union, okay? So the countries in European Union, then read about the Nord Stream, very important. कहाँ से कहाँ तक है pipeline है, कितना लंबा है. All right, so you should know which are the countries which are part of the Nord Stream pipeline. Okay, right. The other important thing is this convention, the Montreux Convention in 1936, which basically gives Turkey the rights to the two straits. Which are these straits? The Dandanis Strait and the Bosphorus Strait. This is the Bosphorus Strait, right? So it gives you access to these two straits. So basically what's happening is that through this strait, if through the Mediterranean Sea, okay, so this is the Aegean Sea, which is part of the Mediterranean Sea, and through the Sea of Marmara, you enter into the Black Sea. And from the Black Sea, you are entering, Russia is that side. So Turkey has been given the right, if there is a war, then you can't, they have the right to stop you here. There are some exemptions, but they have the right to stop, right? So I have mentioned the exemptions also, and the exemptions would be that they have Article 19 of the treaty contains an exception. For the countries in the Black Sea, they can effectively undermine Turkey's power in blocking the Russian warships entering or exiting the Black Sea. So there is one exception which Russia could possibly use. Okay? Right? So know about the Montreux Convention, and then read about SWIFT. I've already mentioned what SWIFT is. It's a cooperative society. 1973, the full form is Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, right? I've already said how it works, and it acts as a carrier of the messages containing the payment instructions between financial institutions involved in a transaction, right? As of 2018, around half of the high-valued cross-border payments worldwide, they've used the SWIFT network. So Russia has been, is out of it now. So he's from Pakistan, Yawar Shah, he is the chairman of SWIFT, and Xavier Tasso of Spain is the CEO of SWIFT. And they organize this annual conference by the name of CIBOS, right? Then one more thing is, on the 9th day of the war, there was a takeover of this particular nuclear plant, and this is the largest nuclear plant in Europe and one of the 10th largest, amongst the 10th largest in the world. It's on that river, Danpier, and it's 200 kilometers from the Donbas region, right? So Donbas region is extremist region, and this has been captured by the Russian forces in March 2022, and about half of the country's energy requirement of Ukraine is met by this particular nuclear plant. So you should know the name of it, which was captured by the Russians. It's the biggest nuclear plant of Ukraine, right? Okay, so now just some pointers as far as this topic is concerned. and we are done with it. Start the payment gateway. Putin, Zelensky, you should know. You should know. I mean, what is this political party called? Right? Can you just inbox me here? What was this political party called? And Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, Donbass region, Crimea. We have already mentioned this particular nuclear power plant. What is the political party of Zelensky called? Servant of the. Can you just inbox me here, please? Okay. So these are Sputnik and Russia Today. They are the two media houses, pro-Putin media houses. I mentioned Champions League here, which was to be held in St. Petersburg. This was cancelled. The Russian Grand Prix was also cancelled. Yeah, absolutely. Servant of the people. Swift payment. Start is the disarmament thing, nuclear disarmament. Swift is the payment system that I've already mentioned. Nord Stream 2, Strait of Dandelion, Strait of Bosphorus. Justice Dalveer Bhandari. Can somebody tell me who is Justice Dalveer Bhandari? He is one of the judges of ICJ, right? And he also, so I mentioned that now. ICJ is the world court. It settles disputes between states in accordance with international law and gives advisory opinions. All member states of UN are party to the ICJ. It consists of 15 judges elected by the UN General Assembly, and just 1 second, guys. All right, so ICJ, all member states of UN are part of the ICJ, and there are 15 judges in this, and its headquarters at The Hague, Netherlands, and this is one of the principal UN organs which is not in the New York City, established in 1945 by the UN Charter, and the court began work in 1946 as a successor to Permanent Court of International Justice. So this was a successor to Permanent Court of International Justice, and this was established in 1945. The Hague, Netherlands is where it is based. Okay, and so one more thing that is coming across is yes, 15 judges with 9 years of tenure, and Justice Bhandari is also who condemned the action by the Russians. So what is a humanitarian corridor? It's basically a safe passage that is created in the war zone by halting hostilities for a certain time, either to allow citizens to flee along the designated routes or to allow for urgent humanitarian and citizens aid for citizens who remain. Right? So it was not very successful because mostly the evacuation was, to go to Russia or Belarus. What else? I mean, the war crimes at Bucha. So this space was quite in news. Ukraine is insisting that the U.S. should declare U.S. as, um, you know, a terrorist state, and so automatically a lot of sanctions, more sanctions. They're the most extreme form of sanctions. So as of now, Syria, Iran, North Korea, and Cuba are the countries which have been declared as terrorist states by US. And in fact, the US, you know, uh, lifts action also at times. For instance, they lifted the sanction against Cuba. But again, once Trump came, the sanctions were again put. Similarly, Iraq, for that matter, right? Um, so both the International Criminal Court, all the war crimes which are taking place, uh, they'll be uh, at the they'll be at the Hague, Netherlands, at ICC. So both the ICJ and the ICC are in the Hague, Netherlands, right? India is not part of the ICC. Um, Now, I've also done a little brief about the India-Russian ties, which I don't think is very important in this case because there's hardly anything except the fact that we have a special relationship with US and they've been supporting. They want us to uh, become part of the Security Council, and there have been a lot of ties. In fact, if you look at the military, I mean, we have purchased a lot of military equipments from the Russians. The Indian Air Force has the MiGs and the Sukhois. They're all Russians, right? Recently, the S-400 missiles, they are from Russia. So we have a very strong uh, defense partnership with the US, with the Russians, and so I mean, we are part of some groups, which is the G20 and the SEO group. Um, Now, what's important is that in 2017, about 68% of the Indian military hardware import came from Russia, so one of the biggest suppliers. And yeah, so now I just want that we summarize this, and you can have taken the notes already. So I've already mentioned to you, these are some of the important things that you should look at as far as this topic is concerned. So in one word, if I have to explain, it is these 10 pointers. And I think this topic is done. You know the rationale behind the topic. If there's any question, you can just inbox, and I'll be happy to answer. All right. Anything in particular that you would like to know? I hope everything related to this topic is clear, and we can move on. Yes, Su-30 and S-400. Yes, so he formed a political party by the name of the Servants of the People, and his comedy show was so successful that he was a novice, a political novice, but then people believed in him, and he has turned out to be one of the best leaders. I mean, the way he has stood against the mighty Russians, and he's been able to galvanize so much of support across his speeches at the UN, at the European Commission. I mean, uh, they were just too good. And even his opponents in Ukraine, the political opponents, say that this guy is doing the right thing, and he's been able to even keep uh, the right wing people in Ukraine to his side. So, right. I think the Minsk agreement in 2014 was uh, forced upon Ukraine. So, right, it was actually forced upon Ukraine. and they have not followed it also. So now I just want to tell you one thing, guys, that when you're taking a topic, right, uh, you just have to focus on every topic. I mean, every broad topic, just focused on some 7 to 8 important issues in that topic. You don't have to really get into the detail. For me, Russia Ukraine would at best be 10 to 12 pointers, not beyond it, right? Not beyond it. All right. So, thank you very much. Um, I look forward to taking a session again with you guys, right? Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can ask me. All right, thank you very much. Is there anything that I missed? Ayush and Ayush Mehta, Preeti Chawla. Okay, you've asked about Minsk agreement. Well, Minsk agreement 1 and 2, they came right after the annexation of Crimea and the extremists, extremists taking over this Donbas region. So it was basically, I mean, just read in detail. It was, as far as I remember, it was about, uh, you know, the exchange of prisoners and giving the the humanitarian aids, etc., and also giving a certain kind of an independence to the separatist area. So, as far as I remember, Minsk Agreement 1, it completely failed because none of the parties, uh, were able to, follow it. But in Minsk Agreement 2, the other countries also got involved. I believe it was France and Germany, and but uh, if you look at it, Ukraine has never uh, been very excited about the Minsk agreement because they feel that it was forced upon them, and so actually, practically, it's never been followed. The separatists kept doing their movement in the Donbas region, and the the Ukrainians have been crossed with Russians ever since. So agreement actually was forced upon them, right? So just read about it. I have not covered this here, but you could actually read about it. This is a little that I know about it. That the Minsk agreement that followed after the annexation of Crimea and the separatist, the fueling of the separatist movement, it did not really come through. So both these agreements actually failed. Anything else that you would like to ask? All right. Thank you very much, guys.